Mitch, as you kind of look at Nebraska's situation with the open defensive coordinator spot, I'm always fascinated how people sort of process what they want from these hires. Are you someone that looks at, hey, I'd like to see either this resume or these characteristics from a new DC, or do you start with, this is a list of names I like for a possible DC, or either?
Well, if there was a name out there that Matt Rhule had his eye on before, and when he went into the conversation on Monday morning with John Butler, and part of the reason that he was motivated to do that was because he thought there was an immediate upgrade, and he had his mind on somebody, much like what we're talking about here with the head coaching stuff, for whether it's Steve Peterson and Mike Sherman or Pat Kraft and Kalen DeBoer. If Rhule had that guy and he thought he was attainable, then it's about the name, it's about a list. Otherwise, it's about a resume. It's about having Big Ten experience. I think that's important. It's about being someone who is adept at coaching a defense that is strong up front. Like that, Nebraska got into a situation this year where all of its experience in leadership on defense was more aligned with strong secondary play. That was Butler's level of place of expertise. That's where Addison Williams, who is the next most experienced full-time coach aside from Phil Snow on the defensive staff. That's where his experience is. He's been a coordinator, but ultimately he's at his core, he's a secondary coach. And same with Snow. Like that's where he came up in the business. So you've left the front seven or six of your defense in the hands of young coaches, and they're going to be probably going to be good coaches someday. And I'm talking about, and I think Rob Dvorak already is a good coach, but along with Phil Simpson and Terry Braden, were they ready to have the kind of sway, have the kind of importance that they did in building this defense to be something that could play November football in the Big Ten? And I think the answer turned out to be no. So on the resume of the next defensive coordinator, I think has to be, you have proven it, that you can be a physical run-stopping defense that's set up to get it done in November in the Big Ten.
Mitch, as you kind of look at how the season ended for Nebraska, obviously the losses to Penn State and Iowa in ways that nobody really enjoyed, except for Penn State and Iowa, I guess.
All of their fans.
Yeah, I think their fan bases enjoyed those quite a bit. But how differently do you feel going into the offseason now than you thought you would, let's say, prior to the Penn State game?
Oh, prior to the Penn State game, I think there were concerns about what was going to happen in these last two games because of the offensive styles that both teams employed, and Nebraska's inexperience at quarterback, and after the injury to Dylan Raiola. I thought it was a distinct possibility that Nebraska would go 0-2. But part of me said, they'll find a way. Like, this is a team here in 2025 with a 7-3 record that has played pretty well in close games and made some games close, at least one game close that didn't really look like it should have been a close game. I'm talking about Michigan. They'll find a way. They'll find a way to split these last two, and then 8-4 going into bowl season with a chance to win 9 games, maybe going to Florida for a bowl game. Like, that's going to feel really good for the Nebraska fan base, especially knowing how close it was to beating USC and I think that would have happened if Raiola had stayed healthy. That to me was the most likely scenario 2 weeks ago, that it would be 8-4 and feeling pretty good right now about the fight that it put up for 12 games. So obviously that's not what happened. You gave up 77 points in those two losses. They were decisive, and they gutted Nebraska. Like, I think they have taken the vibe around this program that existed on November 20th and completely flipped it, or at least from the outside perspective, completely flipped it to the point where, like, they're teetering at this moment on, a dark beginning to the offseason.
What could or would make you feel better about the offseason? Like, what is it? A certain defensive coordinator hire? Is it transfer portal haul? Like, what would make Mitch feel better about how the offseason's going?
this is a little silly and probably short-sighted, but start with winning the bowl game. Get to 8 wins, point to that. Say 7 last year, 8 this year. Back-to-back bowl victories. Like, it means something. Nebraska's going to play a decent team in a bowl game. Like, show that you have that you've got more fight than what we saw in the last 2 games of the regular season. I think that one thing that a bowl game can indicate is like just the morale and the I talked about the vibe. Like, it can indicate where that's at in the program. And that matters going into the more important part of the offseason, which is the transfer portal haul. So I feel good about Nebraska this offseason. If it hires a defensive coordinator, it doesn't have to be a name brand defensive coordinator. It doesn't have to be somebody who it doesn't have to be Justin Wilcox from Cal. As long as it's somebody who has done it at a high level of college football, and I'm confident can build a defense that starts up front, then that would be a boost for how I feel about the program in the offseason. And then the personnel, is the most important thing. What does Nebraska do in retaining its talent? Emmett Johnson's decision is going to factor in how I feel about the offseason. Dylan Raiola, in his potential return or departure is going to factor in how I feel about it. And then also, can Nebraska go out, add defensive linemen, like a big guy in the middle of that defensive line in the portal next month? Can they fix the situation at offensive tackle? You won't know if it's fixed until September, but can they give the appearance that they've really addressed that situation at offensive tackle? All of those things together. I don't know that there's one that's probably the one that's more important than any is building up the line of scrimmage through the portal.
That was going to be my question to you, is in the portal, what positions are you expecting or wanting Nebraska to take a long, hard look at and bring in those transfer guys? And you just said defensive line and offensive.
D-line.
Yeah.
D-line first, offensive tackle after that. I mean, I assume Elijah Pritchett is back with Nebraska next year, although we don't know that either. Maybe he feels like he got his year here and he maxed out and he's going to go to the NFL. I don't know how that would look in the draft at this point. Probably not great for him, although he would test well. You never know. He could benefit from another year for sure, and that would help if you don't have. I will say 2, and I understand Nebraska has Gunnar Gatula at tackle too. Like I think he can be an NFL guy. Gunnar can, if you think about maybe moving him inside at tackle. I don't know that the future is there like that. So they got to get that. They got to get that shored up. Whether that includes bringing back Pritchett, they got to get that offensive tackle thing shored up, because whoever's playing quarterback for you next year, can't face the same kind of heat off the edges that Raiola saw against the likes of Michigan and Minnesota.
Outside of offensive and defensive line, which I think is the most logical place to start, is there a position that you look at and you go, yeah, I'd kind of like an upgrade there as well? Because there's one that pops to the top of my mind. I'm curious how you think about it.
I mean, I think you can look anywhere because of what Nebraska brings back and the losses that it's going to incur or likely to incur. I mean, we know Sierra Wright's gone, and that's a huge hole to fill at corner. Even though he was playing nickel for the most of the season, he's still in man-to-man coverage. So you got to, and maybe those guys are in the program. Maybe those corners are in the program right now and can step up. I think they feel good about some of the young corners, and we know Donovan Jones is a player, and Andrew Marshall's back. So it's not that. Pass rusher, I kind of include that with the defensive line. I think Williams-Nwaneri will continue to get better in this program, but he shouldn't have played. He shouldn't have been asked to do as much as he did this year. So just going through this as I talk through this answer, I might even look at wide receiver. And Nebraska was good there, not great, but good there this year. But Dane Key is going to leave. And then I also think that Ja'Cory Barney and Isaiah Hunter have decisions to make. Isaiah Hunter's draft eligible right now as a third-year sophomore. I expect him to be back, but that's got to happen. And I expect Barney to be back, but he's always the guy that Matt Rhule uses as the example of, you better believe that people are knocking on his door. And it's going to happen again this offseason. And I think Ja'Cory can look at the production that he put up in the second half of this season and say, can I do better somewhere else? Like, I'm not trying to plant that seed. Like, it's obviously already out there. Expect that he'll be back, but if depending on what happens at wide receiver, they might have they will have some spots to fill. But I'd also look at tight end. Like, it's all over. Like, I'd look at tight end. Lindenmeyer's back, but Harburg's gone. Carter Nelson's back. Like, what's his future in the program? Like, I think you can make a case for just about anywhere on the rosters. What were you thinking, Ravi?
I think the one position you didn't say, linebacker.
Okay.
I would have, a lot of that goes into, you mentioned front seven and stuff, and a lot of that goes into what the defensive line looks like, right? They can make linebackers look really bad or really good, but
I feel good about Vincent Shavers. I feel good about Dawson Merritt. I think Christian Jones is a guy who will have a second year surge. So, but yeah, I mean, they do need linebackers.
Willis McGahee, the fourth, also there, redshirted this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I expected more from him this season. I think there was an injury situation involved, but the jury's out for me. Like, I don't know that I'm not like counting on him to be a difference maker until he shows that he's returned to that late freshman season form.
If EJ does decide to go to the NFL, do you like what they have in the running back room? Do you think they like what they have in the running back room enough to not go portaling? I mean, if there's a good running back in the portal, you're obviously going to take a swing, but is that something that you would expect them to do if EJ decides to?
Yeah. I think they may go to the portal either way. Even if EJ comes back to look at somebody like the back they missed out on in Marty Brown, who went to Miami, like somebody who can share the load with him. It's nice that Emmett can withstand 25 to 30 carries a game, but what kind of could he be better if it was 18 to 22, even more effective? I mean, he might not put up 1,500 yards, which is what it's going to be after the bowl game if he plays in the bowl game. But and if he's back, then obviously he is playing in the bowl game. So I think they go to the portal either way, whether Emmett is back or not. And if he is departing for the NFL, then it's right up there with the offensive and defensive lines, or defensive and offensive lines in that order in terms of a priority. Like, you have Jamal Rhule coming in, who signed today. You're a year away from Amir Brown, who's highly regarded. So that doesn't factor. You're talking about Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey, if that's the position that he stays at, and Quentin Ives, Connor Booth is there, Jamarian Parker. Like, they didn't factor as true freshmen this year. So yeah, you need somebody proven. You need to go get a running back in the portal if Emmett's gone, who you can lean on.
That is Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, appreciate the time as always, and hopefully by the next time we talk to you, we'll have at least some answers to some of these questions.
Answers are going to continue to come, good or bad.
That's what I think people forget, is bad answers are technically still answers. Mitch, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.